Imagine logging into your dream job interview. You adjust your webcam, take a deep breath, and, well, start talking.
But you are not talking to a person.
Right. You are trying to impress a computer program to get a paycheck. It is a massive psychological shift for a job seeker.
It completely changes the environment.
It really does. Today, we are looking at a stack of sources, research papers, technical articles, and candidate notes, all detailing the Micro1 AI interview process.
Yeah, and specifically, we're exploring their AI recruiter, Zara.
So to give you some context on the sources we are looking at, Micro1 is this platform that connects skilled global talent with top artificial intelligence labs.
Because these labs need human intelligence to train new AI models.
Exactly. And they hire for a huge variety of roles. We are talking about software developers, but also writers, doctors, legal experts, and language interpreters.
And because they get thousands of applications globally, a human team just cannot keep up.
Which is where Zara steps in.
Right. Zara is powered by advanced large language models. She conducts conversational interviews that last anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes.
But our mission for today's exploration is to uncover a very specific secret from these source materials. We want to show you why the hardest part of this interview is actually not the first question she asks you.
Yeah, the real challenge is the relentless wave of follow-up questions.
And that brings us to the first major difference. When you log on, Zara is not just reading a static list of questions, like a standard online personality test.
No, not at all. Our sources highlight that she actively listens to what you say.
And that active listening mechanism changes the entire game.
It really does. Think about a normal interview with a human. You usually give a rehearsed, programmed first response. You have script ready in your head for the classic questions.
We all do that. You memorize your best career stories and polish them up.
Right.
And honestly, a human interviewer will often just nod, accept that rehearsed answer, and move on to the next topic.
Because human interviewers care about the social dynamic. They do not want things to get awkward. Or sometimes they're just checking boxes or trying to keep the conversation flowing smoothly.
Or they're just thinking about what they want for lunch.
Exactly. But Zara does not care about social awkwardness. She acts like a perfectly focused detective building a customized case file on you.
Oh.
She parses the text of your answer in real time, finds the weak points or the most interesting claims, and generates a brand new, highly specific follow-up question right on the spot.
Wait, so it is not just a randomized quiz. She is building a customized maze based entirely on my first answer.
Completely customized.
So if I give a basic answer just to check a box, she won't just move to the next topic. She will actually interrogate that specific response.
She interrogates it thoroughly. She uses your own vocabulary to dig deeper.
Which is probably why people panic.
Yeah, this is the exact reason candidates get caught completely off guard. They expect a surface-level chat to screen their resume, but they end up facing a highly targeted cross-examination.
Okay, that sounds incredibly intense. If she is interrogating my answers like a detective, what exactly is she looking for? Like, what is the algorithm trying to confirm in the text of my response?
The documentation shows Zara evaluates 5 main pillars. She looks for real experience, reasoning ability, communication clarity, sound judgment, and consistency.
I mean, those sound like the exact same things a human hiring manager wants. But how does an AI actually measure something abstract like reasoning? It doesn't have intuition.
It does not use intuition at all. It uses a mechanism called chain of thought processing.
Chain of thought.
Right.
Yeah.
Here is how it works under the hood. As you speak, the system transcribes your spoken words into a massive block of text.
Right.
The language model then scans that text block looking for logical connectors. It wants to see a clear, step-by-step path from the beginning of your thought to the conclusion.
Oh, I see. So it is almost like grading math homework. You cannot just write down the final answer at the bottom of the page. You have to show your work so the teacher sees how your brain got there.
That is a brilliant way to picture it. It is entirely about showing your work. The algorithm maps out your logic nodes to see if they connect smoothly.
But let me ask you this, because this is a huge fear for anyone taking a technical interview.
Sure.
What if I get nervous and forget the exact name of a software tool, or I stumble over a specific term? Will the AI just fail me immediately? Like, is it grading me like a strict spelling test?
You do not need to worry about that. The sources emphasize that the system is evaluating your underlying reasoning architecture, not your ability to memorize random trivia.
Okay, that is a massive relief.
Yeah, if your overall step-by-step logic is sound, you will score well, even if you forget one specific technical acronym. She wants to see if you can identify a problem, propose a realistic solution, and explain the why behind your choices.
Right. Now that we know what she is grading, let us look at the actual weapons in her arsenal. The sources outline a few specific types of follow-up questions she uses to test those 5 pillars.
The most common one you will face is the specific probe.
The specific probe.
Yeah. I say you give a generic safe answer. You might say, in my last role, I used Excel to analyze large sets of data.
Which is probably the most common resume bullet point in the world.
Yes, exactly. And a human might just say, great, you know Excel. But Zara will immediately process that and follow up with, what specific functions did you use in Excel to clean that data?
And if I say, I used a pivot table to organize the information.
She pushes again. She will say, please give a real-world example of when you used a pivot table, explain the exact problem you were solving, and tell me what the measurable results were.
Wow.
She will keep pushing the boundary of your answer until she finds the absolute limit of your actual hands-on experience.
She is practically stress testing the limits of your knowledge. What is another type of question she uses?
The scenario or judgment test. Zara wants to see how you adapt your knowledge to different, sometimes conflicting contexts.
Do the sources give an example of that?
Yeah, they can run out a fascinating case study where a candidate applied for a language interpreter role.
Translating between 2 languages requires a lot of nuance. How did she test that?
She asked the candidate how they would adapt their translation style when translating a poetic quote at a business conference versus translating an emotional testimony in a strict court setting.
That is such a clever test. Those are 2 completely different emotional and professional environments.
They are. Translating a poem at a conference requires creative energy in capturing the spirit of the words. A court setting requires absolute, strict accuracy and neutrality, regardless of the emotion.
Right.
By asking for the contrast, she is testing professional judgment and adaptability, not just your vocabulary list.
That brings us to the 3rd type of follow-up question, and this one sounds like the most stressful part of the entire process.
Oh, well, the hyper-specific resume question.
Yes. This one definitely frustrates candidates who pad their experience.
Oh, absolutely. Before the interview even begins, you upload your resume to the platform. Zara ingests that document and has a flawless photographic memory of it.
Every single word is locked in her database.
Every single word.
Yeah.
Because she has perfect recall, she might ask about incredibly obscure details you barely remember yourself.
Like what?
Well, in one of the source notes, a candidate had uploaded an academic resume that included an old research paper they helped write.
Okay.
Zara asked them about the exact temperature used in a chemical reaction from that 10-year-old paper.
That is wild. It really is like facing an infinitely patient prosecutor. Every single word on the document is fair game, and she has all the time in the world to ask about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You cannot hide any exaggerated skills. If you put it on the paper, you must be ready to defend the mechanics behind it.
Okay, since we know how intense these questions can be, we need to provide a blueprint for a successful response. The sources mention a very specific way to structure your answers.
The most reliable way to format your data for the artificial intelligence is the STAR method. That stands for situation, task, action, and result.
I know the STAR method. I mean, almost every career counselor teaches it for standard human interviews.
They do it as a classic.
But how does an AI process STAR differently than a human HR manager?
Well, a human listens for a good story. The AI listens for causal links.
Causal links.
Right. When you break your answer into those 4 distinct parts, you are naturally feeding the natural language processor the exact logical connectors it needs for that chain of thought processing we talked about earlier.
Let us break that down with a realistic work example from the sources. Let's say I'm applying for an operations role, and Zara asks how I handled data discrepancies.
Okay, good scenario.
She asks, how would you correct a mismatch between our inventory system and the actual warehouse stock?
A weak answer would just throw out vague business terms. You might say, I would double-check the numbers and email the warehouse manager.
Which sounds fine to a person, maybe.
But it gives the AI 0 logical steps. A strong answer uses the STAR framework. You start with the situation. You say, in my last job, we discovered the database showed 50 laptops in stock, but the warehouse only had 40.
That gives the AI a clear, quantifiable starting point. What comes next?
Then the task. You say, my responsibility was to find the missing 10 laptops without halting daily shipments.
Okay.
Next is the action. This is the absolute most important part for the algorithm. You must give a step-by-step workflow.
So I would say first, I audited the physical shipping logs from the past week. Second, I noticed a bulk order was shipped but not digitally marked as fulfilled. Third, I manually updated the database to reflect that specific shipment.
Perfect. Notice how you use words like first, second, and third. Those are the transition markers the AI is hunting for.
The logic nodes.
Exactly. Finally, you deliver the result. You conclude with, by updating that record, we aligned both systems and prevented a stockout error for future customers.
So a strong answer does not need to be a complex, revolutionary business strategy. It just needs to be a clear, jargon-free, step-by-step explanation of your workflow.
You identify the problem, propose the solution, and explain the mechanism of why it makes sense.
The algorithm maps your structured words to its grading rubric flawlessly when you speak like that.
It does.
Even knowing that method, though, the high-pressure environment causes many candidates to stumble. The source materials outline several common traps people fall into. Let us walk through them.
The first major trap is giving vague answers. Relying on empty buzzwords is incredibly dangerous in an AI interview.
You mean saying things like, I am a proactive team player who always gives 110%.
Yes, exactly that. While a human might just smile at that cliché, the AI cannot process it.
Because it's not data.
Right. That sentence gives the system zero logical details to map. Because it lacks hard data, its programming forces it to push you harder with more difficult, aggressive follow-up questions to extract actual information.
You are basically triggering its defense mechanism. If you do not give it data, it will squeeze you until you do.
Exactly.
What else is the system watching while I am talking?
That leads to the second trap, the strict testing environment itself. Zara does not just analyze your voice. The platform monitors your eye tracking, your screen focus, and tab switching.
So you cannot keep a cheat sheet open on another monitor or, quickly search for a term online.
Absolutely not. These are built-in anti-cheat mechanisms. If you switch tabs to search for a definition, the system registers the loss of focus.
Wow.
If your eyes constantly dart away from the camera, the algorithm assumes you are reading from unauthorized notes.
You really have to treat it like a formal face-to-face interview in a corporate office. Keep your eyes locked on the screen and stay engaged.
But the biggest danger of all, and the one that ruins the most interviews according to the data, is what the sources call the silence trap.
The silence trap, how does that work mechanically?
Well, the Micro1 platform uses voice activity detection, or VAD. This means the AI is only actively listening when it detects audio levels above a certain threshold.
Oh, I see. Think of it like a motion sensor light in an office building.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
If you sit completely still, the lights just abruptly shut off, regardless of whether you are still in the room working. But in this case, instead of waving your arms to keep the lights on, you have to use your voice.
That is the perfect analogy.
But wait, what if I get a really hard follow-up question? If Zara asks me about a complex database mismatch, I might genuinely just need a few seconds to think and organize my STAR framework.
Sure, humans need time to process.
Right. If I sit in silence and look at the ceiling, what happens?
The harsh truth is, the AI only knows sound. If there is dead air for a few seconds, the voice activity detection assumes you are done speaking.
Wait, really? It just cuts you off?
It will cut you off mid-thought, log your answer as complete, and move directly to the next question.
Oh, wow. You just lose your chance to answer entirely. A human interviewer can see your face. They can see you squinting or pondering, so they give you grace. The machine just registers silence as a stop command.
It creates a huge amount of anxiety for candidates who are used to taking a thoughtful pause.
We need to resolve that anxiety right now. The sources provide some highly actionable, practical techniques to handle these follow-ups naturally without triggering that silence trap.
The most effective technique the research points to is the speak-to-pause method.
How do you do that without sounding scripted or like a robot?
Instead of sitting in silence to think,
Yeah.
you narrate your internal thought process out loud.
Okay.
You say, wow, that is a complex scenario.
Mm.
Let me think for a second to structure my approach before I break down the steps.
It is almost like doing sports commentary for your own brain. You have to do play-by-play just to keep the microphone active.
It keeps the audio threshold active, preventing the system from cutting you off, and it actually sounds completely natural and conversational.
What is another practical tip from the notes?
Ask for clarification. Many candidates feel intimidated by the AI. They think asking a machine for help makes them look incompetent or underprepared.
They feel a false sense of urgency. They think they have to deliver a perfect answer the second the AI stops speaking.
But asking Zara to rephrase a confusing question or provide a specific parameter actually improves your evaluation.
Really?
Yeah. You can say, could you provide an example of what you mean by that specific metric? Or are we assuming the database is currently online in this scenario?
So asking for clarification demonstrates strong critical thinking. It proves to the logic model that you want to fully understand the scope of a problem before you blindly start solving it.
It shows professional maturity. The AI recognizes that as a positive trait. The final practical tip is course correcting out loud.
What does course correcting look like in practice?
Sometimes you start answering a complex follow-up question and realize you made a mistake mid-sentence.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
Human instinct is to panic or freeze.
Yeah.
Do not do that. Just say, wait, looking at it again, that approach would cause an integration error down the line, so I need to adjust my strategy to prevent that.
But will the AI penalize your final score for making an initial mistake?
Not at all. Catching your own error and explaining why it's an error actually proves to the algorithm that you have an internal validation mechanism.
That makes sense.
It shows you are actively analyzing the problem in real time, rather than just reading a pre-written script.
You are checking your own work live on the microphone. That is a massive signal of competence. It turns a moment of panic into a display of complete control.
We have unpacked a massive amount of information today. We understand why these follow-up questions are so relentless, how the chain of thought algorithm maps your logic, and how to use techniques like speak to pause to navigate the silence trap.
Preparing for this kind of algorithmic interview is undeniably a unique, modern challenge. But looking through all these sources leaves you with a really fascinating philosophical concept to ponder.
Preparing for an AI interview forces you to completely organize your own brain. You have to strip away vague filler, stop relying on social charm, and communicate your value with pure, structured logic.
Which makes you wonder, could training yourself to satisfy a machine's strict algorithm actually be the exact thing that makes you a vastly better, sharper human employee in the long run?
If this breakdown helps you rethink your interview prep, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.
We would also love to hear from you down in the comments.
Have you ever faced off against an AI interviewer?
Share your own experiences and let us know how you handled the pressure.